But I want to spend some time with Rashida Talib, who is, I believe, the only Palestinian in Congress. She actually is an American citizen, for those of you who don't know. And they keep asking her this question, and it's reminded me of something, right? So they keep asking her, does she denounce Hamas? Now, I don't know Rashida Talib. I think we interviewed her when she was running for that seat back in the day, and it was she was on. Ilhan Omar we had on as well, and she won. Ilhan Omar won, and Ilhan Omar is the second Muslim. The first is Keith Ellison, who I did a whole book with and spent a lot of time with, and he's been on this show a lot. Now he's the Attorney General for the state of Minnesota. The first Muslim elected to Congress, and we've had many, many conversations around terrorism and in the wake of 9/11 and how you navigate these spaces and serve all of the people. And to be elected in a space as he was, it was, I think, like 1% Muslim and 6% Black, because there's an allegiance to serving people when you go to Congress, and he was able to do that and got reelected and widely in a landslide, right? And got tired of fundraising, so decided to serve in a different kind of way. There are a lot of Americans who have very complicated backgrounds with racism and with a whole lot of things that figure out how to serve all humanity. I don't know Rashida Talib, again, personally, but asking her if she denounces Hamas is almost accusing her of being in league with the terrorists. And I'm going to say this, journalists, those of you, I know you think it's cute and you're looking for a sound bite. So now what you have are headlines that she didn't answer or respond strongly enough. So that's the setup. And let me just say this. Don't ask me if I support Farrakhan. Don't do that to people unless you're going to ask every white member of Congress if they denounce white nationalism, if they denounce racism, if they denounce the shooting in Buffalo, unless you're going to ask every congressperson that if they denounced what happened in Charleston, South Carolina, or to Heather Heyer. If you're not going to do that, then you can't do it to her. And if you do it to her, then you are really showing yourself as not a good journalist, but probably somebody that's a racist, because you wouldn't ask that question of anyone else in Congress with a similar situation. We've had domestic terrorism over the last 9 years that I've been here at least a dozen times. And I don't recall that being a question on the tip of anybody's tongue to ask any white member of Congress if they denounce it. Even those in the white nationalist party wing of the Republican Party. I don't recall you asking Marjorie Taylor Greene and them, and Lauren Boebert and them, and Jim Jordan, who is up, and Steve Scalise, who actually likened himself to David Duke without the baggage. I don't recall you asking him this. And again, I don't know Rashida Talib, but I do know that question is got a little hidden, baked in effed upness about it. So I'm gonna read her statement. And I'm going to ask, maybe I'm not seeing something. 866-801-8255. I'm all really good with being wrong here. She says, the failure to recognize the violent reality of living under siege, occupation, and apartheid makes no one safer. No person, no child anywhere should have to suffer or live in fear of violence. We cannot ignore the humanity in each other. This was her statement, right? This is what she said. Some people are calling this anti-Semitic. I'm going to read the statement that she posted, and I'm going to ask you, is this anti-Semitic? I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn too. 866-801-8255. She says, she writes, I grieve the Palestinian and Israeli lives lost yesterday, today, and every day. I'm determined as ever to fight for a just future where everyone can live in peace, without fear, and with true freedom, equal rights, and human dignity. The path to that future must include lifting the blockade, ending the occupation, dismantling the apartheid system that creates the suffocating, dehumanizing conditions that can lead to resistance. The failure to recognize the violent reality of living under siege, occupation, and apartheid makes no one safer. No person, no child anywhere should have to suffer or live in fear of violence. We cannot ignore the humanity in each other. And as long as our country provides billions in unconditioned funding to support the apartheid government, this heartbreaking cycle of violence will continue. Now, she's being labeled an anti-Semite for this statement. She's being labeled a person in league with Hamas because of this statement. But she's a woman born Rashida Harbi. And I want to say we all come with our full selves to every situation. And we should not have to stifle or muffle any parts of ourselves, because this is how we move forward, by recognizing and understanding we all have these unique experiences that make us whole. If we are truly this melting pot, if we're truly the United States of America, e pluribus unum, out of many one, we're going to have to make space for the many. Born Rashida Harbi, working class Palestinian immigrant in Detroit. Her mother was born in a town near the West Bank, in the city of Ramallah. Her father was born in Beit Hanina, which is a neighborhood in East Jerusalem. He moved to Nicaragua after leaving that area, after moving the family out of Palestine, that area that is now Israel, all of it is Israel, to Detroit. He worked on the assembly line in a Ford Motor Company plant. Some of y'all know some people that might have worked with him. Maybe y'all granddaddy or pop worked with him. As the eldest, Rashida Talib, at the time, Miss Harbi, played a role in raising her siblings while her parents worked. A lot of you have that same background where your parents worked and the oldest sibling, hey, I'm one, took care of the kids, took care of the other kids, the younger kids. She graduated from Southwestern High School in Detroit. There's a lot of y'all, what up, though, who may know that, 1994. Some of y'all were her classmates. She got a Bachelor's of Art from Wayne State. I know Keith Ellison went to Wayne State, so I'm familiar with that. A lot of people I know went to Wayne State. Her law degree, she got a law degree in 2004, and in 2007, she was admitted to the bar. She got elected to Congress a bunch of times. She is serving, obviously, her community that elected her, 866-801-8255, and to label her, and listen, you don't have to agree with her politics. This is a woman, though, that probably still has family members in this area. For her, it is not like, okay, we have to condemn. Yes, we condemn violence. I think that's baked in. Nobody is saying that we want terrorism. And she said in her statement, I grieve for the lost lives of both the Israelis and the Palestinians. No children should have to be raised in this. I feel like this is a statement I've heard many, many times in my community. But when we go out as media, now you're putting these bullseyes on folk because their language isn't pristine. They're not reading the script exactly the way you want it, because guess what? They're not living the same experience that you're living. And I have a lot of, I'm in touch with, the ambassador, Michael Oren, one of my, I'm not even gonna get into all of my closest friends or whatever. I'm not getting into that because that shouldn't even matter. Whether we have close friends or not, we're all people. So I'm just gonna say this, and there's a guy, and it's hard because this guy is running against George Santos, who's a whole ass. Let me just say that. That's redundant, but that's what he is. George Santos, who's in Congress with 23 indictments, but we have a president that is running a guy that's running for president that has been indicted 90 something times. So what are we going to do? So he's running against George Santos. So I want to support him. His name is Josh Lafazan. I don't live in New York. He's from Nassau County, Long Island. He's running as a Democrat. He has family in Israel. So his perspective is very much rooted in, I got family in Israel and I don't want them to die either. And I'm condemning anybody that is even leaving space for a conversation about anything else. So he expressed total condemnation for the responses that Rashida Talib and apparently Ilhan Omar, and I haven't read her statements yet, so I'm not going to deal with that until I do. But he's condemning them, and he's not even in Congress yet. But he has a right; he's an American citizen to do that. He called for both congressmen, Congress people. He called them both anti-Semites. He slammed Rashida Talib's statement that I just read. And he said that Talib is an anti-Semite and not a serious person, let alone someone who's deserving of being in Congress along with Ilhan Omar. This is too much. Josh Lafazan. I get it. Listen, I stand with you, but this is too much. Not a serious person? Really? This is how we are not going to ever solve this. You can obviously because you're doing it, but this is not helpful. How is this helping? And he called for Democrats like himself to speak up unequivocally and condemn these two. It's like asking Obama to condemn Jeremiah Wright, which you did. And it was a problem, and it's still a problem for a lot of people that he did that because he knew if he didn't do that, he probably wouldn't have been elected because they would have used that one thing to make sure that they would hammer him home. Farrakhan and all of this, like, it's complicated. Well, do you condemn what he said about Judaism? And yeah, of course. I mean, obviously, I live my life in such a way that clearly I'm not somebody in line with that. But you're asking somebody to denounce something that they didn't start. And I think it's baked in that none of us with a human heart and a functioning brain is on the side of terrorism. So to even intimate that, to me, you are setting the table and it's a setup. And no. 866-801-8255. But I could be wrong. I don't know Rashida Talib. I don't really know Ilhan Omar. You know, maybe they are everything that he is saying, but I need evidence. And just saying it doesn't make it true. 866-801-8255. Let's go back to the phones. We're talking about the unrest, the war that has erupted on the heels of Hamas coming in and raining down hellfire on Israel, snatching people, grandmothers, children, babies, doing some horrific things at a concert, taking people from a concert, and the retaliation is upon them. Okay, so all the Gaza Strip was a little tiny area where so many people are packed in, all kinds of people. They're now waiting to see whether they're going to be able to get to Egypt, get to safety, or die. And this is really what's happening right now. And in this country, I believe there's a lot of commentary happening, a lot of political posturing around this. And if you are Jewish, you feel very strongly about this, as you should. If you're a human being, you feel very strongly about this, as you should. And if you are a Palestinian, Muslim of any sort, probably you feel very strongly about this because it's not just about what happened on Saturday. This goes way back. And it continues to go back. And it's not just the 2,000 years. Somebody said this has been going on for 2,000 years. No, it is recent and is at the same time far, and it needs to be sussed out. But it also requires global leadership to bring everybody to the table. The last time we had any leader, I think, worthy of having this conversation was Jimmy Carter. It was the last time we had a leader strong enough, and then they painted him as a weakling. Boy, did they destroy Jimmy Carter's reputation. And I remember, and I would say to my mommy, why that man seems so nice. He's a peanut farmer. I remember having this conversation with my mother about Jimmy Carter because he's from Georgia, like my mom. And Amy, was in the White House. And I was like, he seems like such a nice man. Why are they saying these things about him? Boy, did they tear him down. And now we know one of the smartest men to ever be president of the United States. But he was smart enough to understand that this world really has no borders, and that we're all going to have to figure out how to get along or nobody will be here, which is why he built houses. He was in the building game. These leaders today are in the destruction game because many of them can get on a plane and go somewhere because they don't really have an allegiance to anybody but themselves. And we need to know that. 866-801-8255. Clorinda has been holding on in New York. Welcome to the Karen Hunter Show.
Hi, good afternoon, Professor Hunter.
Hi.
It's a privilege to speak to you. I just wanted to say, you said that you hope the world could be empathetic, but I feel like in the United States, especially, we have been groomed for the last many hundred years not to be empathetic and compassionate. The people that our supposed leaders have been grooming this country to not have any empathy or any compassion on each other, including the journalists, and including the people who, unfortunately, we have elected to be, most of those we have elected to be in power. They do not put others before themselves, and they do not push that as something that should be forward in anyone's mind. And piggybacking on your conversation from yesterday, I would like for you to look at the Willie Lynch syndrome. I think this has broad-scale programming by a few people
Mm-hmm.
who, and maybe it's all economic based. I don't know.
I was going to say,
when you do
yes, yes.
behavior programming, it's difficult to get it out.
Yeah, no, it is that Miss Clarinda. First of all, thank you for that. Willie Lynch, the letter didn't really exist, but the syndrome is absolutely true, and it's age old, because how do you dominate people unless you present the propaganda that allows everybody to demonize? One of the assignments that I give all of my students, no matter what I'm teaching, is this book Propaganda by Ed Bernays, and it actually kind of spells out how propaganda works. And it is so prevalent today, where we don't have journalism, we have propaganda mills. We have corporately run propaganda mills. Your social media, Facebook, Twitter, propaganda mills, and Reddit. These are places where you get to put your shape ideas. You got the little sound bites, you get the little videos, you get, and now with AI, I just saw something crazy today. They are using the image and likeness of celebrities. They are doing the most here. They are out there promoting some craziness, but they're using AI now. Now they got more tools to give you more misinformation. It is scary, but to the point, and I think about being a young reporter, my goal wasn't the same as it was. I wanted to make my bones in this space, and you get rewarded for coming back with the story that your editor sends you out with, even if it may not be the story. I didn't have enough confidence and gumption to fight back until I was in my 30s, but in my 20s, it was like, oh, you told me to go get this, so I'm gonna come back with the story. Oh, I found this story. And I didn't know that whether the story that I was coming back with fit a trope. But now I look back, a lot of the stories that I came back with that they sent me out to get fit a particular narrative that may not have been the real narrative. They're painting pictures and telling stories with a very specific goal in mind. And then you're 20, 30, a tool to then do that, and you get rewarded when you do it, and you do it well, right? And then it just goes, and who's not going to want to be rewarded? Who's not going to want to get that next paycheck? Who's not going to want to get that book deal? Who's not going to want to get that TV show? You get rewarded for parroting a certain kind of narrative that feeds the machine. But we got to start holding people accountable. I'm fortunate enough to be one of the few people who've been around long enough to be able to tell you where the bones are buried and be able to hold people accountable at the same time. And I have not been co-opted and corrupted. And I can tell you who is corrupted, and which is why it probably took me this long to get here, because people knew that I was going to tell. I'm going to tell. I'm always going to tell. I'm always going to tell. I'm not keeping it to myself. If you did something, I'm going to let people know you did it. 866-801-8255. Now, I may not volunteer, but don't bother me. Don't do it.